Hey everybody, what's up? Carl Schoof here from Snorkel.tv, and today what I want to do is deconstruct this cool Mac Pro ad that I saw. It kept coming up in my Twitter timeline, and I was like, wow, that text reveal effect is pretty cool. Let me see how it was made. So what I'm going to do is jump into a screen recording of it. We'll inspect it sort of frame by frame to get a feel of the motion and the timing. And then we're going to jump into Animate, and I'll show you how to build it from scratch. Sound good? Let's go. Alright, so here in ScreenFlow, I have a video capture of the actual ad. Most of it is spinning Macs spinning around, but what I want to show you is this part right there, okay? It's just this little like 1 second of animation that I want to recreate. Now, how do I know it's 1 second? Well, let me just stop that, and if I double click here, you'll see it's marked as 1.3 seconds, you know, so not a very long animation. But let's study exactly what's happening. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Boom, 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 boom. That should be good enough. Maybe scroll down just to there. And so now I can scrub through and see that animation happening. I'm going to do one of these jobbies. All right, so here we go. That's the first frame of the animation. And you'll see that we get a little bit of the text revealed. Okay, this is a masking technique where we're basically just seeing part of what's behind that mask. And we're going to scrub forward slowly, and as that mask is growing out sort of from its center, 2 lines of text are moving up, all right? And all that happens over 1 second. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go all the way back to that first frame of animation, and you can see just a few pixels there of the text. I'm going to add a thin line right about there just to mark off where that mask happens. And that is not a thin line at all. So let me go over here and make it actually like 3 pixels. Boom, thank you. And so now hopefully we can see that, yeah, that's sort of where it begins. And it's also where the baseline of that everything text is going to be when the animation ends. All right, I'm just doing this as a rough sort of visual marker to see what's happening here. Now what you can see is that notice how that blue line is at the top of the everything text, and at the end it's at the bottom. So the everything text isn't moving very far. It's just moving a very small distance, basically based on its height. Now the power to change text is moving further away from the everything text as this effect plays out, all right? They're not at a fixed distance. And it's so small, but it's such a subtle effect that gives us the impression of like sort of like an expansion happening, if you will. That power to change just sort of seems a little bit more lofty, floating up towards the top. And the reason I know this is because right around here, what I'm going to do is just add a little square. So this is my measuring technique. I'm going to measure between the space between those 2 lines. And then as we scrub forward, I'm going to show you that if I take that little block there, let me zoom in a little bit more, and let me just show you that if I take this square and move it up, you'll see that that text is further away there, right? It's so slight, but it means so much in this animation. Again, back to when we first see this text together, we're going to see that the space between them is very small, and then as the animation plays out, the space between the text is actually going to grow, all right? So very subtle, but cool. So let me just zoom out a little bit to normal size so you can see the whole thing. I'll get rid of some of these annotations here, and let's just watch this effect one more time. Beautiful. And one last thing I want to show you before recreating it in Animate is this. When this text effect is over, as soon as it gets to where it needs to be, boom, it just cuts right away to the logo, all right? So there's no additional time to read it. It just zaps away super fast. If I go back to the beginning, the opening animation, same thing. You better read that text as it's animating in because you're not going to have all day to watch it, okay? And once we get into Animate, I am going to also do this beginning effect of that gray rectangle growing, okay? So we'll have everything happening together, all right? That background color growing up as the mask is expanding and the text is moving up and away from each other, all right? So let's hop on over to Animate and see how it's done. Alright, so over in Animate here, I've done a little work. I took a screenshot from my video of the final frame of the animation with that blue line there. And this is just a bitmap in a guide layer, which just means that when I export my SWF or final video, that I will not have that in the finished project. It's just in Animate to use literally as a visual guide. So what I need to do is first set up my text. Now I'm going to go to this power layer here, and I'm just going to type in power, if I'll spell it right, to change. And wow, that text almost matches up perfectly. How did I do that? Well, I Googled what font does Apple use, and it's Helvetica New, and the size of about 62 is right. If I chuck on a letter spacing of 1, that might get me a little bit closer. It blows it out pretty far, so let's just do 0.5. Ooh, we might even have to, I'm sorry, let's go down to -1. You know what? Good enough for now. You fancy pants designers can, mess around with individual letter spacing, but that's good for me. So there we have power to change. I'm going to do a Command C to copy that, and I'm going to go to the everything layer and just do a Command Shift V to paste in place, and we'll bring that down, and let's just do everything with a period there, and we'll just try to get it sort of close right about there. Now this one, okay, maybe we'll do letter spacing of 0. Good enough for now. All right, we're going to focus on the animation here. So that text looks good. I choose yellow so that it just helps me see the text beneath there with some high contrast. But before we turn this text into a symbol to animate it, I will go ahead and select it and change its color to black. All right, so I know it's in a good enough position. It looks close enough to the original for this, and we'll make them both black. All right, so I have 2 pieces of text in their own layers. If I hide the visibility of the guide layer, that's what we have. Oh, it's beautiful. I guess I could work at Apple, right? So let's take this text, do a quick F8 to slam it into a symbol. I'm just going to call it power. And then we'll take everything here, F8 again, and call it power. Oh, yes, thank you. It should be everything. Hit OK. And then in my library, you'll see that we have the everything and power symbols. Very cool. So remember, this is the last frame of the animation where I got the screenshot from. So I'm going to go out to, let's say, frame 80. My FLA is running at 60 frames per second to have it nice and smooth and slick. So right around frame 80, I'm going to add a keyframe in both of those layers, which is going to create duplicates of what's happening in frame 1. So in frame 80, everything looks the same as frame number 1. However, in frame number 1, I'm going to now move things into their starting state. So I'm going to select both of them. And remember that the everything starts right with the top of the E below that blue line, okay? We inspected the video, and that's what we learned. Now, power to change, here I'm going to actually turn off the guide, is going to be moving away from the word everything as the animation occurs. So this is where it ends, but it's going to start kind of close to everything. I'm just going to eye that out. I really don't know what the starting state is, but let's give it a shot. So I'm going to select both frames here, right click, create classic tween, and voila, we have this animation, all right? Nice and dreamy of that text moving up, okay? Pretty happy with it. Now by default, the ease that's used on these tweens is going to be linear. So what I'm going to do is go to the properties panel, and we're just going to do a pretty heavy ease out, all right? That's sort of the style of this animation. They start fast and then go slow. So let's just see what that looks like as a SWF. Oh my goodness. All right, nice and dreamy and floaty and wonderful. So the next part of this equation is that mask effect. Remember, we have that sort of mask growing from the center as this is happening. So let me just really quick, I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to set it as a mask. Okay, and what that means is that we're only going to see things in the lower layers that are beneath whatever shape that I draw. Let me illustrate real quick. So in this top layer here, let me just call it mask, and watch this fun thing. Somehow Animate thinks there's a special character in there. I think mask is a reserved word. So let's just hit OK, and it's going to call it mask_IDN. We can talk about that more in another video. But for now, I'm just going to draw, let's say, a basic black rectangle here. And if I lock the mask layer and the two layers underneath them, what you're going to see is that we're only seeing the part thing in everything. Power to change, we're still seeing the whole thing. Well, why is that? Well, I've got to actually take this power layer down here, and I'm just going to drag it up so that's associated with the mask. So now only things under that black rectangle are visible, okay? You got to have all these layers locked to see that effect. So let's just turn them off. And for some reason, I love drawing my masks in horribly bright and garish colors, okay? So in frame 1 here, this mask is going to start out really thin. So let's just make it wider. If I hold down Option, I can scale it from the left edge there. And we'll just scale it down to the center. All right, and it's going to start out really not covering up anything at all. And the trick is to go to maybe the last frame of the animation, and I want that mask to grow to cover up all the text. So I'll just slam in a keyframe here in that last frame, and let's just do something like bring this up and then maybe bring it down a little bit, okay? So since that is a vector shape there, what we can do is right click and do Create Shape Tween. And so now as the animation is playing, that mask is going to grow. And if we want to see the mask effect, we can lock all these layers, and it looks something like that right now. But I don't really like that halfway through, you still can't see the full power to change text there, all right? So let's turn the masking off, and now you'll see that we have this rectangle here. So the trick here is that we're going to have the mask grow a little bit quicker than the text is moving. And the way we're going to do that is that we're not going to have it take the full amount of time. So I'm going to just drag this keyframe back here a little bit. All right. And then now we're sort of seeing it covering up the text a little bit better. The descender on this G isn't really being revealed all that quickly. So there's a few things I can do there. I can just make this a little bit bigger, and that will happen a little bit quicker. So now, without the masking effect on, I think that's going to look all right. One way to check it out is to turn on the masking, and there we go. Let's export the SWF. Whoa, that's starting to look pretty cool, isn't it? I sure think so. Let's go back to frame number 1, and I think what I can do is unlock that mask, and I'm just going to set its height to be exactly, I don't know, 1 pixel. Ooh, no, we don't want it to be proportionally scaled. What are you doing to me? Let's unlock the width to the height, make it 1 pixel tall, and I'm gonna bring it down just a little bit. Bring it right to there. Cool, just using the arrow keys to move it around. So now I think we're getting, whew, loving it, right? Cool. The last thing we want to do is add that background piece that grows with it, all right? Let me jump over to the finished version. All right, here I am back in ScreenFlow. And so remember this gray rectangle here is sort of growing while the text is being revealed. And one thing I want to point out is this really strong, ease on the end. It starts fast and then goes slow and dreamy. So it actually takes quite a while for that gray box to go up to the top. But let's just see where it starts out, okay? It's going to start the first frame. Not getting a lot of fidelity here. Let's just do this. Can I get the first frame? All right, it actually starts kind of big, right along where I think my blue line was. Let me hop back to Animate. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to call it BG for background, and I want it to be beneath everything else, not masked. So let me just draw a little rectangle right around, make sure I'm in that frame. I'm going to draw it right around here, okay? And this one I don't want to be green. I'm going to turn my guide layer back on. I'm going to select that green shape and sample the fill color. So we're matching it perfectly. I'll turn my guide off. And now we're just going to do another simple shape tween. So we're going to go out to frame 80. All right, we're going to add a keyframe by hitting F6. And here we're going to just scale it from the center perfectly. All right, up to there, down to there. It goes off the stage a little bit. That's not an issue right now. We'll right click. We'll create our shape tween on that. Go back to frame 1. And let's just try it out and see how it looks. Oh, that's pretty nice, don't you think? And you might notice now that the gray box is animating at a constant rate of change. What I want to do is add an ease to that. So we'll select the first frame. We'll go to the properties panel and we will go to our classic ease and we'll just make it really strong, and that should change things a little bit. There we go. It slows down towards the end. All right, let's look at this a few times. I think we're good. I think the only thing I'm going to do is make this here a little bit less tall in the beginning and move it down here. So, nice. One last thing I want to do is drop a logo in at the end. So let's close this off. And as we saw in the Apple ad one more time, back in ScreenFlow, watch how quickly, boom, that apple comes in, all right? There's no time to really read the text. It's just a hard cut to the logo. So let's try to do it exactly the same. So what we're going to do is go out to frame 80 where stuff ends. And we want to get rid of all of these things here, all right? So let's unlock that. We're going to hide the mask real quick. And so I don't want to see power to change. If you're a beginner, what you might do is go to frame 80 and then delete it, and then you just broke your tween and everything's a nightmare. You have that blank keyframe there. So the trick here is, of course, that you need to add blank keyframes. So in the power and everything layers, I'm going to select both of those. We'll just jam in blank keyframes by hitting F7. So that removes them from the stage. And if I'm going to be really nice and neat, I'd create a new layer, and I'm going to call it logo. And right when those things go away, so boom, text goes away, we're going to add a keyframe by hitting F6. I'll go to some other file that I have open. No, not that one. Here we are, the finished file. Let me just go to the last frame of this, excuse me. And what do we have here? There's my Herman. Let's copy him. We'll go to my file, make sure that blank keyframe is selected, Command-Shift-V, paste in place, and then he shows up. So let's see how this looks. So nice. All right, now there's one little thing I just remembered, and that's that the background doesn't really start with the text moving up, all right? Let me jump over to the finished video one more time. Let me jump over to the real ad one more time. So in ScreenFlow, we're at the beginning. Notice that the background actually comes in for a few frames before you even see the text start to come in, all right? So what is that? We're at about 0.3 seconds of animation of just the background and then introducing the new MacBook Pro. So let's hop back over to Animate, and there's an easy fix for this. Let me just zoom out a little bit so I can see my whole timeline. And so the background layer is going to have like a 20 frame head start. So I'm just going to click and drag to select all of these frame spans here. And let's just do a little shimmy and shake and drag them out to frame number 20-ish. And then boom, oh, it's so lovely. Let's see how this looks. Oh, looks like something got a little bit messed up. Looks like Herman didn't get moved. Maybe I didn't select him. Yo, Herman, logo, let's bring you out over here. All right. Yes, I make mistakes all the time. So there we go. We've recreated an effect that Apple created in just, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. And it was a lot of fun. Hopefully you learned something in this. And if you need more help learning Animate CC, check out my course, Animate CC for Everyone. It's for absolute beginners. I'm going to show you how to create expressive animations for social media sharing, emails, banners, or just plain silly stuff. For more information, check out courses.snorkel.tv. Free preview is available, so you can try before you buy. Hey, what's up? Real quick, if you liked the video, please consider giving a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to get notified when new videos come out, just click that little bell. Ding dong. If you got any comments, leave them below. I'll read every one and do my best to help you. Have an awesome day.
Snorkel.tv.